Well, hi, welcome everybody. Great to be here. So I put some notes because I thought we were going to have a chalkboard, and I'm going to just kind of give you what we're going to talk about, the high points. Raising the young athlete, okay, it's the name of this casual talk. We're going to talk about the benefit of sports, the principles of performance, parental pitfalls, right, and take-home messages. And then funny questions, you know, do I homeschool the kid? Do they do multi-sport? And it's going to be real casual, okay, guys? So, with all that said, I'm going to engage audience participation. All right, I got my little notes here. So, what are the benefits of your kids doing sports?
Keeps them out of trouble.
That's a big benefit. Out of trouble, I like it. It's even in one of my notes.
Confidence.
Confidence. And that's right. So, how does confidence work? How does sports help a kid with confidence? Can somebody tell me what's the number one determinant for self-confidence?
Support.
Resiliency.
Success, self-mastery, okay? So if you never give your kid a chance to go do it themselves, right, and really get a sense of mastery, if you always a helicopter parent and you go do it, okay, at the end you get them out of trouble, they don't ever feel they do it, they don't get a sense of mastery, and that's what leads to confidence. The other things are vicarious modeling behavior, right? They see somebody do well, and then they can do well. But let me stay on track. Let me not go off too far. So benefits, confidence, keeping them out of trouble. What else about sports?
Social aspect.
Social teams, right? So you have to work in a team. You got to be harmonious. And then it could be the opposite. You could be in a sport that my little daughter's a figure skater, so she does a lot of training alone all the time. And you have to learn how to do that. And to be really good at a sport, what are the couple of qualities to be really good, to be the next level? Discipline, right? Right? And work ethic, right? So discipline is the car that takes you down the road. If you don't have discipline, if you don't get that in life, now believe it or not, I mean, Dave mentioned that I used to play professional table tennis. That's true. And I actually never did well in high school because I was too busy flying around the world playing table tennis. But the discipline that I learned through doing that all those years, then when I went to college at like age 21, I was like, wow, it's not so bad. Meanwhile, in high school, you know, they could barely get me through. So we really learn a lot about structure, discipline, and all that. Let me see. And for me, here's a big point. So sport, right, is a microcosm of life. So what is life? It's a competitive event out there, whether it's in school, trying to get in colleges, the kids, right, today, they're so competitive, you got to get a job. So in sport, you can learn how to compete. And you want your kid to learn how to compete because it's a tough world out there, and we can compete having fun. So what a wonderful way to bring them into the world, right? If you don't teach them that, and then they get out there, they can have a tough time. So an example, when I went to college, my lab partner in chemistry was Eric Hayden. Now you're all pretty young, but he won 5 gold medals in the Olympics. And in 1980, 1981, he was my lab partner. And, you know, I was always amazed how he could have this incredible life. Like, he flies on Air Force One, he's Eric Hayden. He meets the president, he does all this stuff. And I realized it was this incredible discipline. And then we're in college, he's my lab partner, and I got to watch him firsthand. And now he's an orthopedic surgeon for the U.S. ski team. And then when we were in college, he switched to cycling, and he just used that same methodical discipline, and he made the Tour de France, and he won the U.S. cycling, then becomes a doctor. And it all came from his training coming up. It's that same kind of thing. Let's see. Resilience, right? Winning and losing. I mean, winning's fun. Losing defines character, right? Losing is when we learn. And to learn you have to learn how to lose and learn from it and have resilience to become a winner. Okay, so those are some benefits. Principles of performance. So we don't want our kids, right, to be all fearful and choke, right? And we want them to be motivated. How do you get your kid motivated? So there's one unbelievably important thing that they have to be in touch with. So I get athletes. One time on Golf Channel, they were showing like the greatest golfers fall into the pits from like top in the world to number 2,000, and they had 5 of them. And I remember my father at the time said, "I think they're all your clients," which of course they were. It's no lie. Now they're all TV announcers, so that's good. But the point is that when I even meet a very high level athlete, what is my job? I'm not going to be like Derek and teach him technique or putting if it's a golfer, or Derek we both work with Nate Kading, the kicker of the Chargers. But what I try to do is bring him back to the root, right? So we all have, why do we do sports? Why? Why do little kids go do it? My kid had me go throw the baseball today. Watching the World Series? Because it's fun, right? It's sport. It's supposed to be fun. And the minute you lose fun, okay, and you're in trouble. So that's the thing that you have to preserve. If you think, I'm a Little League. I remember being Little League, we take batting practice, it's your turn to bat, and you strike out, right? All you want to do is get back up and hit it again, right? Right? It's that kind of attitude. Give it to me, bring it on. So without fun, that gets stale. And no matter how confident you are, if you don't have fun, you are not going to perform at a high level. There's a thing we call process-oriented goals. So the goal, right, I'll come see a golfer, right, and I'll say, well, what's your goal? And he'll say, win U.S. Open or something like that. And I'll say, well, how do you win the U.S. Open? And he'll say, I got to hit a lot of fairways, make a lot of putts, on and on and on. But it all comes down to just a couple of basic things in whatever your sport is. And we'll take golf because we have some golfers. So it's a system that I've used for 25 years with Olympic athletes, and we call it the mental scorecard. And here's how it works. So all of you who play golf or don't, we'll keep it real simple. You come to a golf shot, you got to figure out it's 180 yards. That's my 5-iron, right? So you kind of figure it out statistically. That's the left brain, right? That's your analytic brain. So you figure out what you're going to do. There's a high jumper I work with, Olympic high jumper. He's got to figure out the wind, the angle of attack. Then we use our right brain, okay? And what's that mean? Does anybody know what your right brain does? Artistic. It can be, and it's what we call a creative side, okay? So it can be visual, right? So you see people see the shot. Golfers will see the shot. It can be kinesthetic. That means feeling. So Phil Mickelson, he's always going like this. He's looking for a feeling. One of the guys I used to work with, David Duval, who was #1 in the world, he hit what we call cut shots. So he would hang on and he would look for that feeling, or it could be tempo. So there's a famous golfer, Vijay Singh, and again, I'm dating myself, but there was a famous model, Cindy Crawford, okay? And Vijay Singh, no lie, on the driving range would go, Cindy Crawford, okay? So that's an example of tempo. It can be visualization, okay? It can be feeling. And so every shot, I figure the left brain, okay? Then I see the shot, or I feel the shot. And then the last part is no brain. And we spell that K-N-O-W. So K-N-O-W, knowledge, right? It's a triple entendre. And then in the word knowledge is now, right? We're in the now, the present, engaged. And then no is no thinking. So you figure out the shot, you see the shot, you come in, you hit it, no trepidation, okay? If you're the high jumper, you do your angle of attack, and then the guy that I used to help, Jamie Nieto is his name, he would feel his belt buckle, Fallsbury flop, go up over, okay, that was his feeling, right? And then boom, he's done. So what I do with golfers when they contact me, and these are PGA Tour players, they don't say, oh, Doc, I shot 66 today. They say my mental scorecard was 92 or 98. So when I helped Phil Mickelson, he won the British Open, his mental scorecard was 98. Now, what's that mean? That means 98% of every shot he was out there, he wasn't thinking about bogey or birdie or winning or not. He's fully engaged in that shot. So the mental scorecard is a way in which we everybody wants to rate themselves, but instead of rating yourself on a score, you get nervous, and we rate yourself on your process. How good did you do? How engaged were you? So when we have a goal, we have a result goal, we want to win, so what's the process to get there? And that's what you want kids to focus on. You want them to focus on learning. Pete Sampras, one of the great tennis players of all time, won, I think, 13 majors. He would say that if he played well and lost, it was a win. If he won but didn't play well, it was a lose. And that's why he was such a gamer. He was such a clutch player, because it wasn't about winning and losing. Now I'm going to jump because it's just what I do. So there's a famous quote in Wimbledon. When you're at Wimbledon and you walk out, it sits right there. It's by Rudyard Kipling. And it says, this is the quote: "If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters the same." So what does that mean? You watch Nadal and Federer, right? They play for 5 hours. One guy wins, one guy loses. And they add the points up. It could be like 481 points to 482 points, right? So close. But who won and who lost? Well, somebody's the winner and somebody's the loser, but really the competitor, it's one and the same, right? It's the battle. And you have to think in this way, and the greatest athletes think in this way. All right, where am I? I got lost. Sorry, guys. So fun. How do you resurrect fun, and how do you keep your kids right focused on what they're doing? Okay, parental pitfalls. We all make them. Heck, I do this for a living, and I make them every day. I got 3 of them. So here's a really important thing. You take Dave. Dave played 17 years in the NFL, right? You know, there's a lot of kids play football, and a lot of really good kids play football. And how many people really get to that level? Let's be honest, okay? Less than 0.01%. Okay? John McEnroe just did a interview for Golf Channel with a guy, David Faraday, and he sent his kid to Nick Bollettieri's tennis academy in Florida, and he went down there. McEnroe's a famous tennis player, and the coaches came up and they said, "Mr. McEnroe, you know, we want you to know, you know, his tennis is number 1, his school is 2nd. And McEnroe got irate with the guy. He said, "My kid's tennis is number 1 and his school is 2nd? He said, no. School is first, okay? Okay? Because he said he said, I was lucky, right? He was the super gift, okay? Most kids, your kid may be a heck of an athlete, but I wouldn't count on him being John McEnroe, okay? So you want to support that, but you don't want to set it up that way, because that's not normally how it works. So you have to be a little bit realistic, and the investment that you put with your kid should be consummate with your child's talent and commitment. So I'll give you an idea. So my little daughter is a very competitive figure skater here in Southern California, and she has a friend, a lovely friend, who's not as competitive, right? And, you know, my daughter making an Olympic team is still 1 in 1,000, and she's really good, okay? So this friend is not as good, so honestly it'd be 1 in a million, right? And the parents take her out of school, she's homeschooled, she's flown everywhere, stroking coaches, these coaches, that coaches, and the next thing you know, she doesn't have a skill set in life. And she feels all this pressure because she realizes that, you know, she's getting beat up pretty good out there, and she has no other identity. So it's a balancing act, right? So if you have Tiger Woods as a kid, right? He was on Johnny Carson when he was 5 years old. His dad still made him do his homework before he went to the golf course, right? So that balance is really important. You want to be careful to congratulate your kid's effort, not as a result, okay? You don't want to say, "Oh man, you're such a great football player," or "You're such a great tennis player," because then they're going to start thinking they're great, right? And then they're going to feel pressure to be great and show off, okay? Rather than say, "Hey, that was great training, that was great effort you put out there today," okay? Which disassociates the result. Because if you want the best result, right, it's all about the effort. All right, we don't wish, right? You can wish to be a rock star, but I don't really like Lady Gaga. But if you learn about her, she worked her ass off, right? She didn't become Lady Gaga, right? I hate Lady Gaga. My wife likes Lady Gaga. Yeah.
Watch A Star Is Born. You'll like her better.
Yeah, no, I heard she's crazy. Yeah, I heard she's like and comparative thought. Comparative thought is always tough, right? So my little brother, he played on the PGA Tour 5 years, which is pretty darn good. But I had to watch my father compare him to like every other PGA Tour player for God knows how long, and that definitely didn't help his game, right? Okay, and then not living vicariously through kids, right? This is your kid's thing. It's not your thing. I mean, I see parents more motivated. Once you're more motivated from your kid, you're off base, right? You got to let the kid go, right? I mean, I think my parents must have thought I was crazy. I would run cross country track in the morning, go to school, take the train to Manhattan, train every day, and I was like 13. I mean, I wouldn't even let my kid in New York City now, right? But it's that motivation, right? You got to be, and that's the kid, and then you invest a little bit, but it's a fine balance in terms of keeping them safe in today's world too, right? So if you're with them on every trip, I have a guy on PGA Tour right now, very good player, young player, and his mother's gone to every single tournament with him, but now he's like 27 and he's married, right? Beautiful wife. His mother still wants to go to every single tournament, and that is the biggest problem in the equation, right? Because he's never been on his own. McEnroe talks about how at 17 he went off to England and all these places. That's real world. Your kid's got to go out there and do it without his parents. So at some point, you got to cut it. You got to let it go, kick it back, watch it, okay, but not this thing. Okay. So I wrote some questions. That's the meat of the talk, you guys. But, questions that people ask me, do I homeschool my kid? Do I multi-sport my kid? I'll just make some brief comments and then you all ask me some questions. So I'm not a big fan of homeschool, all right? And I think your kid better be really, really good to homeschool, okay? Now, there are kids at homeschool that do great. It does happen. If that happens, you really have to work for the social aspect. There's another figure skater I help. He's 17 and a half. He can do quads, right? Those are the 4 spins. Not too many people in the world can do them. He's great. He's like 20 in America. But he's not going to the Olympic team, and he's not going to be Olympic champion. And he can't really talk to people. It's really sad, okay? Because he's been in this little box, flown around the world with his parents and everything. So he never learned to socialize. And even if you're as good as Michael Phelps, right, and you win 20 Olympic medals, you still have to learn, I got to be able to talk to a girl, right? I got to be able to pay a bill. So that's an important piece. Multi-sport, here's a general rule. You let your kids play more than one sport. Okay, we see, like my daughter at 12 or 11, that's, you can only do this. You want that's a quick way to take fun out of it, right? Let them be kids. Let them have some fun with it. You get a little older, you want to really go there, you let them go there. Okay, questions, you guys? Dealing with winning, dealing with losing. What do you parents do when your kid has a bad day and he lost? That's always hard, right?
That's what I was going to ask. What do you say to your kid?
I'll tell one funny story. Okay, so my son is not quite the athlete that my daughter is. And he's on a soccer team. Soccer team is, I think, 0 and 9. And I go to the soccer game, and he's the goalie. And they lose 7-0, and I'm over there having a heart attack because they can score on little Theo like it's nothing, right? And you're like the dad. You're like, oh, man. Okay, and then, the game's over. The other team's cheering, and, my son is, I feel terrible. So I go over to him, and I say, hey, Theo, how was the game? Oh, good, Dad. Good, Dad. I said, really, good? Oh, wow, you're 0 and 9, and you just lost 7-0, and you're the goalie. And I go, okay, do you like goalie? Because if they can score, you will. I might not think you like it, right? He goes, oh, no, Dad, I love goalie. And I'm thinking, you love goalie? Wow. And I stop, and I go, well, why do you like playing goalie so much? You know what he said? because you don't have to run, Dad. So he has fun with it, right? I high-fived him and we got some ice cream, right? Now that would be my daughter, right? She'd be the other way. She'd have her head in her hands. And, you tell them, there's a great golfer right now, Dustin Johnson, #1 in the world. And they say, you're so even keel, you win, you lose, you're chill. He said, I've been doing this my whole life. He says, I hit a lot of good shots. I hit a lot of bad shots. I go with it, just see, right? So you kind of normalize it. And the one thing you want to do when they come home is the same thing. That's why sometimes an athlete gets a young family, right? I remember when my kids were real little, I'd come in, it wouldn't matter what would happen, right? I could get stalked at the hospital. Dave knows I've had some crazy things in my life. And that little 4-year-old, they come running up to you. They love daddy or mommy, right? And, you want to reciprocate that back later in their life. It's all good, we have to go through it all. Okay, questions? I've talked enough. Time to drink.
I got a question for you. So, I have a son that plays uber competitive baseball. He's 13. He plays with 14 and 15-year-olds. And his program wants him to take a gap year because he should be in 7th grade, but he's in 8th grade. He's a 2024 grad. He should be a 2025 grad.
He could be.
So they want to take a year back, right?
So they want him to skip. They want him to go do 8th grade over again, or do whatever between 8th grade and freshman year. So mentally, all of his buddies are going to go be a 9th grader. He's going to go train physically. He's going to go do all these things for sports and school, but then still be an 8th grader. What do you think the ramifications are for that? Because
so have you guys heard of this? People do it all the time.
I have a lot of golfers that do that.
Not only in sport, they do it in school. Hold your kid back a year in school, right? He's a little older, he's a little smarter.
It usually happens younger. Usually happens going
younger. That's right.
Kindergarten instead of into.
And this study was actually Malcolm Gladwell is a famous writer, so he talks about this phenomenon. And they've looked at it. In general, I'm not a huge fan of it. Okay. Because one, if you're going to be one of the best, okay, it doesn't matter. You're going to be one of the best, okay. It doesn't really matter what grade you're just. So, there's many sides to it, right? So the kid, the argument is he's going to have more confidence, maybe gets more attention. But I really think, if somebody's really going to make it, they're you can see the kids very quickly who's going to be really good, and. So that's a personal bias, Derek. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but when they've looked at that stuff longitudinally, they haven't shown necessarily that those kids get better, and that comes from Malcolm Gladwell's book. It became famous.
Outliers.
Outliers. Yeah, I think it was Outliers. Any other stuff, you guys?
So you talked about the right brain and then the left brain and then the no brain.
Yeah.
And I've just found watching our kids and myself that sometimes I feel like I'm easier to engage into that flow state, be in the zone. Sometimes I'm not. You can see it in our kids. And do you see any mental things that help that or
Yeah, so I wrote a book in 2008 called Finding Your Zone, okay, and it's all about flow state. Just not that I'm PR in books. I was going to bring some or whatever, but I forgot. Flow state has, we studied flow state in the early 90s, UCSD. We got a grant from the U.S. Tennis Association. We had 12 famous athletes, McEnroe and Hyde, all these people. Then we had controls. And what you found was fascinating. You found everybody gets flow state in their life. You don't have to be the world champion. You could be a teacher. You could have a really good day. You could be a firefighter, right? We see it more under extreme circumstance. There's a phenomenon called dissociation, where you're just in another place. So dissociation means I'm playing in front of 50,000 people, but I don't see anybody. I'm just in my tunnel, right? And it's about not being, once you think, hey, I'm in the zone, you're not in the zone. It's like when you play some of your best golf or something, you're playing good, but you don't know the number, right? So you're right, we go into flow states, music, great musicians, that's all about flow. And flow is just get yourself out of the way. Interesting observation, I think I wrote about it in one of the books. is religion, right? I've been fascinated why we see so many athletes, they thank God, right? Thank God. Well, what's that about? Well, here's what I think. I think that you say it's God's grace, right? And I'm the conduit, right? I'm just the passageway. Then you take your ego out of it. And you just see, well, let's see if I can hit a home run. Because what you want to do coming up in sport is never have a bar, okay? There's no bar. Think of Roger Bannister. He's the first guy ever to break the 4-minute mile. He was a med student in Oxford. And they said no one could ever break the 4-minute mile. This is like 1960. He broke it. 3 minutes, 59 seconds. Well, guess what happened? In the next 3 months, like 28 people broke it. So find out how good they are. I asked John McEnroe once. And I said, so Mac, when did you know you were good? And he said, I was 16. I was at Wimbledon in the juniors. And I played the men's event, and he played Jimmy Connors early. Connors was #1 in the world. Mac was like a top junior, but far cry from #1 in the world. And he said, the guy beat me 3-1. And he goes, I figured I'm going to get better. I'm going to kick his butt. That's what it was so simple. So simple, right? So, and then if they're doing real good, not too many, just keep it cool. Just be cool, right? And make sure, you got to keep the ego in check. That stuff's for the devil, right? You go around, too many trophies. My buddy Eric Hyde with all those 5 gold medals, right? He never knew where they were. One time we had a party at his house, and we had this great pool, Woodside, California, and there was a lot of girls around. And he said, Lardon, go get the sweaters. So I went to the closet to get sweaters and blankets, and 5 gold medals fell out of the closet. And then we were wearing them at the party. But he's like, wow, man, what happened to those things, right? So he's such a humble guy, right? And that's why he could keep moving on. He wasn't defined by what he did, right? What's the next thing? We say in golf, right? As in life, there's only one shot. One right in front of you, right? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. No, that doesn't help me, right? I'll learn, move on. All righty, guys, thanks.
Thank you.